guys, welcome back to the home in Homestead. Today we'll be doing a pressure canning project. We'll be doing black beans or turtle beans, and we'll be using the Mirro 22 quart stovetop pressure canner. This is a pressure canner that you can use on your stove or on a side burner. And this particular model uses a weighted pressure control. It comes with a 5, 10, and a 15 pound or PSI weighted pressure control attachment. It also comes with 2 can trays, so you can do 2 layers of cans. For today's project, we'll be doing black beans, also called turtle beans. We'll be doing 8 plain and 8 with diced serrano peppers. So that works out well. You can do 8 on one level, 8 on another, and keep them separated based on the variety that we're doing. I'll be doing a dry, no soak canning of the beans today. So what that means is a lot of times you will see recipes when you use dry beans such as these where they tell you to soak them overnight or for an extended period of time. This recipe that we are doing today does not require any soaking. So you place the dry beans with any seasonings that you want and some hot water. I have hot water going on an electric kettle off to the side, and you just add them to the jars and can as we will be doing today. So follow along and see how we do this pressure canning of beans today. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is put a half a cup of the dried beans into each of the jars here. I picked up these dried beans from the local bulk food store. If you don't have a bulk food store nearby, you can purchase them online. And some grocery stores have them as well. I like to do the pint-sized jars with a regular mouth for beans, because typically when I do a recipe, I'll just use the whole jar. And the regular mouth jars, you can fit more of them into the canning pots. Okay, so we have a half cup of black beans in each of the jars. So 8 of them I'll leave plain, and the other 8 I'll add about a tablespoon of diced serrano peppers. These were harvested from our garden, so they're nice and fresh. So I diced about 8 serrano peppers. Now let's put some hot water in from the kettle. I can link in the description box all the materials that I'm using today, including including an electric kettle that you can use that works very well for preheating water and then easily pouring into canning jars whenever you're pressure canning. Usually fills about 4 to 5 jars, and then I have to refill. And you'll fill it to about a 1-inch head space. So let me refill this kettle, and we'll fill the rest of these with water, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so all of the canning jars are filled with the beans and water, and half of them have the diced serrano peppers. You can put salt in your beans when you're canning. For a pint, you'd use a half a teaspoon. I choose not to, so the plain ones are simply beans and water. So now we'll put the lids and rings on and get them into the pressure canner. So just place the lid on and just lightly apply the ring, just finger tight. The ring is simply there to hold the lid in place while it's processed. Once it's processed and it cools and it seals, it sucks down the lid, and the ring will be very easy to remove at that point in time. We like to use black beans in chili and other such soups and Mexican type dishes. We also like to make a cold bean salad or cowboy caviar. That's good with black beans in there. Sometimes just beans and rice. So lots of uses for beans, and you can really get usually a pretty good deal at a bulk food store on the dried beans. And then if you take the time to can them yourself, you'll see quite a difference in price and the money you've saved versus buying something that's pre-canned at the store. And you know that they're fresh and there's no odd ingredients or preservatives or things like that. It's simply the bean and water and any seasonings you might want to add. Okay, so now we'll add the beans to the pressure canner. Let's take a look at the pressure canner that we will be using today. So here is the pressure canner we are using today. It's a stovetop pressure canner. This one's by Mirro. It's a 22 quart. I have it on my separate burner here. I can link in the description box below. I like to use that because we have a glass top cooktop and I just feel more comfortable when I do canning off to the side on this burner. Also, it frees up the stovetop then for cooking and things like that. So we have the pressure canner here all ready for loading. Inside there is 2 quarts of water and a canning rack. This particular pressure canner comes with 2 of these. So there's 1 of these on the bottom. I'll put a row of 8 cans, so the regular mouth pint jars, and then the other rack, and I'll do the other 8. So this holds 16 total. So we'll place these in here. You want the water that you place into your pressure canner to be of a similar temperature as to what the jars are that you will be canning. So it's a nice hot water that I have in this pressure canner already, since I'm using a hot water from the kettle in with the beans. Okay, so we have 8 down. Let's add the rack and we'll put the other 8. Usually can get about 7 around the perimeter and then 1 in the middle. There we are. And I'll show you the lid here. So here's the lid of the pressure canner. This is where the weight will go. This is an emergency overpressure valve. And this is a little valve that tells you that it is to pressure and it's sealed, much like an Instant Pot, that it has a little valve that pops up and you know that it's starting to pressure cook. That's what this little valve is here. And as a similar little silicone piece you can remove. This can be removed and cleaned, as well as this little part here can be cleaned, and it has a little silicone ring for sealing, and you can buy replacements of these rings here. Okay, so now we will place this on. There's a little arrow here, and that'll line up with an arrow on the side on the handle here. Just depress it and then line up these little black handles and it kind of clicks into place. So now we'll turn the burner to a medium high, and this will come up to temperature and start creating steam. Once it starts creating steam, it'll start expelling from here. Once a steady stream starts coming from this area here, we'll set a timer for 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes is finished, then we'll place the weight. We use a 10 psi, so this will go on top of there once it's ready. So your altitude will affect what weighted gauge you use. And in most canning books, canning manuals, even probably with your pressure canner, they'll have some sort of a manual. But here is the Ball Blue Book, and it has the altitude chart. So it shows you for pressure canning, if your altitude is in these ranges in feet. If you're using weighted gauge, with this, which this one happens to be, it'll tell you you should use 10, 15. And if you have a dial gauge, so if you have the Presto 23 quart pressure canner, that comes with a little dial on top with numbers, and the little arrow will tell you what the PSI is inside of the pressure canner. This tells you here on the table what number you should go for based on your altitude. So it's important to kind of follow that. So now we will bring this pressure canner up to a nice boil, and it'll start creating pressure and start steaming. When it reaches that point, I'll come back and I'll add the weighted gauge onto the top here. All right, so the pressure canner has been venting from this little stem here for 10 minutes. I had a timer set. So now I'm going to put the 10-pound weight on there. There we go. Okay, so how this pressure canner works is it builds the pressure inside, and the weight, you set the PSI based on the weight, and if anything higher in that comes, it'll jiggle and kind of spin around and release that excess pressure like you just saw, and that's normal. I don't know if you noticed that when I put the weight on there, as soon as that was done, that little tab lifted up, and that's showing that it's sealed and the pressure is built there to the PSI you have set. And so I have the timer set to 75 minutes so we can process these beans for the appropriate 75-minute processing time. If you notice that it's excessively jiggling and spinning around, you can always turn the burner down just a little bit, and that'll just help normalize the fluctuating steam and pressure that's being released, just to keep a nice even pressure throughout the processing time. But don't be alarmed if it does that. That is how this pressure canner releases excess steam. There it goes again. You know that it's processing, and there's built-in pressure in the canner at this time. So once the 75 minutes is up, we'll come back and we'll move on to the next step of the process of canning these beans. All right, so the 75 minutes is up. The little tab here is dropped down level with the handle, so all the pressure has been released. If you touch the weight and no little steam comes off with it, that ensures it as well. So what you want to do is take the handles and give it a little twist, and then just lift off away from you so the steam does not come towards you. And just set that off to the side. Now we'll just remove the jars from the canner and place them onto the cooling and sealing area. All right, so we have all 16 of the pressure canned black beans. Half of them are plain, the other half have diced serrano peppers in them. I will link in the description box below all the equipment and items that I used today for this canning project. If you're interested in more pressure canning or food preservation type videos and how-to videos, there is a playlist for food preservation. And there's also another video that I did for pressure canning seasoned red kidney beans or chili beans. So you can check that out. I used the Presto digital pressure canner for that. Today with the black beans, we use the stovetop pressure canner. And as you can see with the stovetop pressure canner, you can do quite a large volume. I could have done 18 pint regular mouth jars, but I did the 16, they fit fine. If you did the pint wide mouth, that was a maximum of 16. And then you can do 7 quarts in the 22 quart Mirro stovetop pressure canner that I used today. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video today and that you're having a wonderful day. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. See you next time. Take care.